this last year because of the change in the pension plan. It was going to take a little bit longer. So it took a little longer than we thought, but it all got done. And hopefully next year we'll be back to our normal, somewhere between February and March, somewhere around there. But other than, we had two significant events this year. The pension plan changed, and really that probably added about 20 pages to your financial statements. So there's some more information in the footnotes. If anybody really wanted to know, you can really read there and get a good overview of where the plan is. And going forward, there's a little bit more information in the statistical section where you can do some trend analysis where you've only got 1 year now, but as years go on, you can really see how different things affect the plan. So that'll be good information going forward. But as far as the actual dollars and cents, it only had about a $30,000 effect on this year's balance sheet doing that. So really, even though it added a lot, it didn't affect your bottom line at all. And the other significant thing that you did this year was you had the refunding of the loan, and that saved you about $1 million in cash payments and about $750,000 in economic payments. So I think you should commend staff on their work there as far as looking towards the future. And other than those two events, really, you've got a clean opinion as in prior years. We didn't have any reportable conditions or anything. And everything is going pretty smoothly. And the income's up about $300,000 or so from this year. So I think staff's doing a good job of maintaining expenses. Expenses were down compared to last year. And even with the change in finance directors this year, the audit went really smooth. We finished up our audit about in the beginning of February, which is pretty good. It was one of the first ones we finished field work on. So I think you should really commend staff on the job of making that transition go smoothly. And just let's open up any questions anybody might have.
Any questions?
What was the biggest jump? What caused the 300% increase in, or the, whatever that was you said, we got an increase in income?
Well, operating income went up about $100,000, and then the biggest thing was your expenses went down compared to last year.
So was the expenses going down? Was the big
Yeah.
one? Okay, well, Mr. Hayford, you and your group, thumbs up for that then. Very good. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I was going to ask him how many governmental audits you have that come out as clean as this one did.
It's definitely top 5, especially with all the change in personnel and all the new transactions this year.
Yeah, because I was impressed how clean it is. Auditor's supposed to find something wrong. It's very complimentary. I compliment staff on the report that came in here.
Well put. We certainly appreciate it. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moving down the agenda
Wait,
to...
Don't leave that one yet. You need approval of the,
Do we? Did I miss the last page? I'm sorry.
There's
No.
a ratification of the annual financial report that we had
You've
to
got to-
submit
board needs
by
to
the
accept.
June 30th deadline.
You're absolutely correct.
approve and accept the financial report.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve and accept the financial report.
Motion so made.
Motion, Mr. Nelson.
Second.
Second, Mr. Myers. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Second. There's a second thing you need to do. John explained to him there was a deadline.
There was this annual financial audit, we had to have all of this material into the state by June 30th. And it was just a statement or a certification by the board chairman and the OUA to get these documents submitted by their timeline of June 30th. It didn't change the material value what's in here, but we just had to submit that and provide that certification. And we're just requesting the ratification of that action this morning.
Okay, so we just need approval of the board to execute.
Needs to approve the ratification of the signing and the filing of the reports with the state of Florida and with, who is the Attorney General?
Yes.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion to that effect?
So stated.
So stated.
Second.
Second, Mr. Myers.
Could you repeat that again?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All I did was sign it.
As a side note, that keeps your audit going clean. So if they picked up on that next year, so. That's fine.
Thank you, Counselor. All right, agenda item number 11.
Mr. Chairman, board members, you have under agenda item number 11, Infrastructure Solution Services is the engineer of record for the Whispering Pines CDBG project. Whispering, the design element, which you have a copy in your board package, was signed back in the early 2016, and it was based upon an estimated engineering construction cost of around $700,000. Based upon that $700,000 and using the CDBG engineering fee schedule, this scope of work and fee schedule was designed around that value, $700,000. Two things have transpired since then. The project scope of work increased a little bit, and then thereby raising the construction price to $869,000, almost $870,000. And then the actual construction time was increased by 30 days per the request of multiple bidders during the pre-bid conference. Based upon the low bid coming in at $869,470, if we went back to the fee schedule or that it was supplied by CDBG, ISS could be due some additional monies based upon that fee schedule. And in taking that into consideration, as well as other fees that may have been paid, they have asked for a $14,770 increase to their original contract per an amendment number 1. And that's up for consideration this morning by the OUA board. Again, based upon the premise that this original fee schedule was based upon a CDBG rate schedule, if you will. It's all based upon the percentage of work tied to the estimated construction project. Well, now that we have actual estimation of or actual bid pricing, staff certainly feels that that's warranted, that this amendment 1 be approved by the board this morning.
You're looking for approval of the amendment number 1 that increases the fee to $14,700.
It increases the original fee by $14,770.
And staff recommends that?
Yes, sir.
And it gives a 30-day extension.
Well, it does give the 30 days, which keeps them on the job 30 days longer to follow through with the project. But the premise was if they estimated that the original construction cost was going to be around the grant money, $700,000, in the actual bid, by the time we did the water meter connections to the households and everything, it raised it to almost $70,000. If that fee schedule based upon the engineering percentage was good originally, it ought to be good now based upon actual dollars.
Normally, this would be handled in the form of a change order. But I'm guessing because the grant's involved, they'd call this a task order or something, which is an amendment to the contract.
That is the premise that we're using. Yes, sir. We're going.
But it operates the same as a change order.
Yes, sir. And change orders can be under any contract. Typically, you do see that for the contractor. If time or money changes hands based upon the bid, they would be using a change order to modify that contract. In this case, they're using an amendment to the task order.
There's no reason for this not to be granted, though. There's no reason for the board not to approve this.
I would suggest to you that if using this table originally was good in 2016, that same table should be used now if the construction cost and the scope of work went up ever so slightly to warrant that higher bid price of $869,000 from $700,000.
And this was unforeseeable at the time of the contract.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we are looking at approving amendment number 1 to the original contract, which will increase the fee schedule by $14,770.
Motion so stated.
Motion by Mr. Fadley,
Second.
second Mr. Nelson. Further discussion? Just hope this isn't the beginning of a lot of change orders. I hate the change orders on the original contracts, but
But that's why I asked, was this contemplated at the time of the contract, you know, and if it wasn't, then.
yes, I agree. All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Agenda item number 12.
Mr. Chairman, board members, this is related to the infamous Treasure Island project, and to remind everyone that this project dealt with a state appropriation that was approved last year in the amount of $523,867 to the OUA to be applied against the Treasure Island Septic to Sewer program. As you're well aware, we have not necessarily moved forward with any great speed towards this project, which is around $24 million. But our task as staff would be, what can we do with this money that would be tied to that project? You have really one of three options. One would be to do nothing, just to hold the money and hopefully go after some more appropriation money this year to build it. You could return it, or we could try to move forward with a portion of the project. We did have an attempt, or we did discuss with the state representatives asking if it would be appropriate to tie this money to another septic to sewer project in the area, or a planning document, area-wide planning document like the wastewater master plan. And we were basically told, both through our consultants and to myself, was that the use of this money did have to be tied to the Treasure Island septic to sewer project in some way, shape, or form. So we have Dale Milletta and Connie Van Ash here with us this morning as our consultants, state legislative consultants. They can explain it further to you, as well as the processes that they've been going through. But there is one project in the works that would eliminate, hopefully, 2 package treatment plants and connect up several hundred new wastewater customers. So we could either go into that project now, or we can have Dale and Connie come up and speak to you, whichever is your pleasure. We can go forward with.
Mr. Milletta, Ms. Van Ness, you want to come up and educate us a little? Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Thank you. I'm Connie Van Ash, and with me is Dale. You know, the legislative appropriation ask was much larger than what was awarded. So backing a project into the amount of the award is, you kind of go back to the drawing board. And Mr. Hayford has been able to identify something within the Treasure Island to meet the scope of work and honor the legislative appropriation with removal of a package plant. That would work.
Excuse me, keep in mind, when we say within the project, it could be sticky on just next to it. It just can't be like across the county or something. In other words, we'll have to write a new narrative for it, but it's very possible to do that.
Okay.
So, and DEP has submitted their award information and documentation, which includes the scope of work of how the $523,867 will be spent, whether it's construction dollars or exactly, you know, what the board approves. Keeping it within the Treasure Island is significant. That's how the project was presented to the legislature and approved through them.
Right. Well, we do have one proposal that would incorporate the Treasure Island. I understand it would add a corridor towards the wastewater, pick up the extra customers that we needed. We haven't seen a proposal, a number on what this project would cost us yet. Is there any way to go back and try to secure funds through the legislature to compensate for that? The difference in the 523 and the additional cost of construction? Or because it is part of the same Treasure Island?
Next year's legislative appropriation request, we can, certainly put in another project budget request on behalf of the OUA for additional funding. If awarded, DEP has in the past amended the current contract in place. At this time, they will need to see a scope of work related to this award, the 523.
No, I guess that was my question. You worded it better than I did. We're still shooting for the $24 million appropriation.
Oh, yeah, I understand.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had kind of discussed as a board, we're going to have to curve back on new projects, but this because it's incorporated with the Treasure Island, it could go into some funding that we weren't expecting, and I'm just looking for money.
I understand, and we certainly, we're hoping for, through the process as things played out with water projects, the Senate really didn't offer any at all by the end of it. It was only the House that came through with the water project funding. And we were significantly hoping for a larger
Yeah,
award.
quite a letdown.
Yeah,
Quite a letdown.
but we're grateful.
Yes, for sure.
For what we have, and to back the project into that, it's a challenge, I understand that.
Scenario number 2, giving that money back, you're going to have my fingernails in it before it goes back. So.
Well,
Yeah.
giving money back probably could be construed by some appropriation committee members next year as not necessarily getting you any points.
Right.
But we don't make recommendations, we're not your staff, but as a suggestion, if we move forward with it and at least work with them and see if we can get a scope of service that works, and if we have to scale it back or have to find the money somewhere else, it gives us time. We're not locked into 2 weeks or 3 weeks as long as we're working on it with them. If you ignore them, yes, they'll give you a deadline.
Any board members have any questions?
Yeah, actually, I have, it's kind of surprising because you turn the news on every day and they're talking about the dreaded algae in Lake Okeechobee. And it's one of the hot topics. And certainly failing sewer systems may be a contributing factor, who knows? But I would think that the legislature would be more receptive. Like you got Brian Mast and Mr. Nelson, all these people waving the flag about how dangerous Lake Okeechobee is now. You'd think we'd be able to plug in there somewhere and kind of pull something back out of that. I do agree that sending money back is a huge mistake, you lose points. Not doing anything is the exact same effect. So we need to go forward with some aspect of it to show good faith. Hey, we are using money, we did need it. But I think we should be able to tie into that algae thing somehow and say, oh my God, it's so bad, we need to fix it.
Well, keep in mind, sir, that of the 37 small counties, which is the majority of Florida counties, fall into Okeechobee's range. Statewide, the vote is like 7% compared to the rest of the state. And the representatives, I can't tell you this, but I don't know, but it does tend to get where the more squealing there is. But, for instance, their solution has not been to solve Lake Okeechobee's issue. Their solution has been where to send the water where it doesn't hurt anybody.
Well, that's one of the symptoms, I would think. If they would get to the issues,
clean it up first.
don't cure the symptom, cure the problem. And then they all win. But I guess politics is politics. You don't give me any votes out of Okeechobee.
Things happen in election years.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Back to the gentleman here, that I had a senator more than 15 years ago tell me, this isn't a new issue trying to get sewer around the lake. And he told me, he said, I'm going to make a statement during a committee meeting. I hope it doesn't embarrass anybody, but I didn't know what it was going to be. But he got up and said, gentlemen of the committee fixing the pollution problems of sewering Lake Okeechobee of the state of Florida without fixing Lake Okeechobee is like trying to fix a sieve without turning off the water. And it was a very practical thing, and it's probably true.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Just a comment, I never have understood why get the water in the lake and then try to clean it up. Why not do it ahead of that? I mean,
Makes too much sense.
it
makes
makes
too much
no
sense.
sense to me. It
You
makes no
have to go to
sense.
Washington DC to see what goes on. When I was put on by the city, and my wife and I went up, and we were sitting in the offices. We went on both the House and the Senate side, and you're sitting inside there next to the colonels or whatever, and what they're talking about the lake. It's just unimaginable how uneducated these people are. I mean, just like the algae problem right now, and I'm sure gentlemen from the health department would bear this out. When you have warm weather, you're going to have an algae bloom. When you have septic tanks feeding into the lake with the nutrients, you're going to feed the algae problem.
Absolutely.
It doesn't take a scientist to understand this, but unfortunately, the people in Washington, D.C. do not understand this.
Mr. Nelson,
Well, they
keep in
just
mind
try-
also the amount of pollution coming from Orlando down.
Correct.
The guy at 2 a.m. in the morning when he goes out and curbs his dog, and then the thunder and lightning come, I don't know how many days it is, but it ends up down here.
Sure.
Yes.
And this is Melita's law, so it's a freebie. It's not our company stand. But you have a organization that represents all those counties, a stormwater master plan to just help take care of that stuff coming down. Up there, they got so many homes, you're maybe talking about 50 cents a month. But that one over like a lead balloon too.
Well, I don't see that creating another reservoir is going to do anything.
Well, it's going to fill up.
It's going to fill up too, and it's going,
If I
I'm
could,
sorry,
Dale O'Connor, the governor's declaration yesterday for the emergency for algal, how do you see that applying towards the potential for septic to sewer programs being funded through that emergency
I'm
declaration?
trying to get a copy and find out what the details are, because the devil's going to be in the details,
Yeah.
and we don't know exactly how they're limited. Remember the last time we were going to fix the problems with the sewer, they really meant Sewell's Point and everything in Stewart. So we've got to find out how much money will be allocated or can be, and we have asked for a copy of details, but they said they don't have them right now. So as soon as we can get involved in that, we will. But I think, we should attach on to any vehicle traveling that way.
Well, that's my point, I mean, that's the big political hot point right now. Plug into it the best we can and see what happens. Because God knows, my favorite morning TV time is wasted with all these politicians talking about Lake Okeechobee's algae, so, to help them fix it, God knows.
What about the Supreme Court? No, just kidding.
I'm a conservative.
We thank you very much.
Thank
Keep
you,
up the good work. Get us money.
Do you have anything else on the agenda you need us to speak to? We will-
No, I would just do, as far as this emergency declaration, there is a discussion in there that there is, monies would be allocated through DEP for cleanup services. And I would certainly think that this cleanup services for the Treasure Island project could dovetail directly into that. And so whomever is tasked with trying to cobble together projects, the sooner we get this information in front of them, maybe there could be some grant monies made available.
We'll make some initial contacts as soon as we can get into the offices, and they've got something they can tell us.
Thank you, sir.
Right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The project that has been contemplated was, there's a area on the north end of Treasure Island called Vantage Oaks. The owner of that treatment facility, a package treatment plant, is eager to get out of the business. And so the element that we would like to be able to consider would be able to convert or build a pump station at that facility, and by the length of a relatively long force main, connect it up to the new pump station and force main that was recently constructed in Pine Ridge Park. This force main could go near or by the small package treatment plant that serves Everglades School, and that package treatment plant serves also the Agri-Civic Center. If we could convert that package treatment plant to a pump station and tie in, this project would eliminate 2 package treatment plants and connect up several hundred new wastewater customers to us. The benefit of this, the other benefit I could see, not only in the new customers plus the elimination of the package treatment plants, is it gives us a segue into construction in Treasure Island, connecting folks up. So rather than a full $24 million project, we could chip away and maybe connect just the north element up next time instead of the north and the south component to the Treasure Island. So it is a way to start building the eastern corridor up into this collection system. Plus it goes by other neighborhoods where gravity sewer could be contemplated in the future. So my thought process is we would like to be able to flush out this project and or any others over the next couple of weeks. But out of this $523,000, design and preliminary engineering money is viable use of this money. So I would suggest that we as staff need to go out with an RFP for engineering services to conduct a preliminary engineering report on this concept of connecting up Vantage Oaks to our system and to see is that a viable connection and what a preliminary cost would be for that construction, to see when you look at the total design, surveying, engineering, and construction cost, how close to the $523,000 can we stay? My early estimates are around $750,000, but until you actually pick a route, size the force main, look at the available infrastructure that we could utilize, that number is subject to change. So doing this preliminary engineering report would give us a viable tools to know, is it feasibly possible, what would be the possible routes, and what's the expected cost.
Have we spoke with the Vantage Oaks owner recently? I saw you saying here in the recent past where he's still interested.
I spoke with him last week on his way out of town, just before leaving. He's out of town this week, and he said he's still in favor, but the details would come out in a meeting later once he gets back into town as to what he's receptive to as far as giving us easements or any fees or anything associated with converting his treatment plant over to a pump station.
That would be one easy thing, I would think, because he happens to be the landowner of most of the land to get back to the north. So you're only dealing with one landowner to the railroad tracks at least.
Well, we'd be dealing with that landowner and then county right-of-way. I believe we would have to cross private property one other time, but we already have an easement there. So I would think that you're correct that the private property on the south end is owned by him. And I think he would be receptive to granting an easement for the use of that property.
Thinking about other things that would benefit from this, and you talked about the package or the lift station or package plant at Everglades Elementary. I know during events at the Agri-Civic Center, it put some stress or strain on that system. Would that alleviate that problem by?
Yes, sir. It would not only alleviate that problem, but any potential new buildings, whether at one time they were talking about a emergency shelter, for hurricane evacuations. They were talking about other show facilities out there. Right now they are somewhat limited by what they can build because of the limitations of the treatment plant. by getting rid of the treatment plant and converting it to a pump station, all that goes away.
So by approving this project, getting started on that, it would benefit other parts other than just Vantage Oaks and the corridor for Treasure Island. That's
Well,
what
and it
I-
also benefits the OUA because we pick up.
All customers.
I forget the exact number, but, several hundred new wastewater customers in Vantage Oaks that are currently our water customers, but now they would become our wastewater customers.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Does.
Really good.
Is the Pine Ridge Park lift station large enough to handle a portion of the northern Treasure Island area, or?
The pump station could, but what I would propose is we would just tie into the force main and it would pump to the gravity collection system in City Commerce Park. The area that the engineer would have to look at is the pump station that serves the City Commerce Park, whether those pumps would have to be upgraded now because of the additional flows from Pine Ridge Park and Vantage Oaks. So I would contemplate, or I would certainly suggest that pump station in the City Commerce Park, the pumps there would have to be upsized.
Within this infrastructure could handle a portion of Treasure Island, possibly?
Well, it would handle this initial segment,
Right.
Vantage Oaks. If we went to the next element, which was to provide the collection system, say, for the north half of Treasure Island, we probably would have to look at an alternative force main route to handle all of that flow. Because the element from the City Commerce Park to our regional pump station facility probably would be overloaded. So we would probably have to go back looking at that original route of the force main for the east side, which went up through the Hamrick property directly to the Cemetery Road facility.
Right.
Just because the magnitude of the flows would be so great that it would overload our existing system.
So this project would be mainly just Vantage Oaks, and, I mean, it really couldn't be expanded much further than that.
Not, correct, and what I would envision is maybe the segment up to Pine Ridge Park would be okay.
Right.
But somewhere right in that vicinity, we may have to build a regional pump station, and then the new east side force main would start from there, going up through the Hamrick property, up to the Cemetery Road facility.
I see. Thank you.
Do you see utilizing that parcel that we bought from Joe Hayes Leaf where we intended to put a lift station or a pump station? You know where I'm talking about?
Under this project? Under this project? Or in the
No,
future?
Are you, well, let me, more basic than that. Do you plan on, if it worked, using the Vantage Oaks as a lift station, the existing Vantage Oaks facility?
I have requested plans and any documents that they have on it. That would be something we would look at for this project. If it doesn't work, then we would utilize the property we own there near Vantage Oaks. We would have to extend the gravity sewer to that and build a pump station there. But our first choice would be to look at the existing facility that he owns to see if we could convert that to our use. Because that pump station already handles the Vantage Oak flow.
It does. I mean, it's only for Vantage Oaks.
Yes, sir.
And you're talking about turning that into a pump station.
So we would have to go in and upgrade the pumps and the electrical controls to be able to pump up to Pine Ridge Park.
Okay, so initially, you're not talking about building another lift station in that area or down there, which would be across the street from that existing facility.
That is correct.
And what you wish this board to do is two things. One, to approve proceeding forward with the Treasure Island project. And number two, to authorize staff to advertise RFPs
Correct.
for engineering.
Correct. So we would ultimately, we could be spending some of this $523,000. So There are documents that we need to sign and agree to with the state that we're going to move forward with this project. We need to at least let them know that this is what we're doing to spend the money on one hand.
Well, it's a mistake not to use that money. I mean,
It's a big mistake, yeah.
and this is something you're gonna have to be doing anyhow, to me, even, okay, so you do it in baby steps instead of giant leaps, but
Yeah,
the
but
money's-
it's also something that sounds like that it's not a baby step towards it's extra money that we wouldn't be spending if we did the other project. If we're going to do a second road, I mean, that can't be utilized.
Again, the engineering study, the preliminary engineering report would help identify that.
Yeah.
I still would suggest that if this route is sized appropriately, even if it's a smaller diameter pipe, let's say 8-inch, if we were to build a regional pump station on the north side of Pine Ridge, we could utilize the east side force main from that point forward to get all of the flow from Treasure Island. But it's something that we would need to look at and decide, because the trade-off is if we make the pipe too large, the detention time for this low flow in Vantage Oaks would become an operational issue
Right.
that we'd have to deal with in the short term. So that's where we kind of weigh the two. Is it going to be a 4 and 6-inch force main, or can we get up to an 8 and still make it work that would then facilitate the growth of both the north and south sections of Treasure Island?
well, to carry this a step further, do you see the possibility of coupling in the Kings Bay facility?
Not under this project. And conceptually, the reason why is because it is so
No,
much
I'm not
further.
asking to do it right now, but I mean, in the future,
Oh, well, the Treasure Island project in general did include not only Kings Bay, but we have a developer agreement just to the east of Kings Bay, Awesome Ranch. They too would be connected into this facility in the big picture. If we did Treasure Island project, the $24 million project. Does that answer your question?
partly.
Well, we would get rid of Kings Bay
No,
facility.
no, what, the point behind my question is that I could see that the facility down at Kings Bay turning also into a lift station.
That is correct.
Lift station would carry it to Treasure Island.
That is correct.
Treasure Island lift station would then be reconveying it to the north.
Yes. The terminology we sometimes use on that is the piggybacking, one lift station to another one, but it is a conceptual idea that was envisioned for the entire $24 million project at Treasure Island, was connecting all of those stations.
And if that were done, then indeed you would need a bigger lift station in the Treasure Island Vantage Oaks thing. So,
The Treasure Island project did incorporate a bigger pump station at the site we already own. That's why I would not envision trying to use that now. I'd like to leave it in its current state so that if we did do the next projects, we have a totally unaltered piece of property, I think it's an acre, that we own there, that we could build the vacuum pump station as well as the regional pump station facility. So if we utilized the pump station at Vantage Oaks, we would leave that other site unaltered for future construction. But it is still an option if we have to use it.
we have to start somehow.
Yep.
John, I haven't been in Vantage Oaks but once or twice. Are there actually 200 units in that place, or does that incorporate Brenda Band and the people down the road heading back towards Everglades?
I think it's limited, isn't it?
It's 2 or 3 streets there, 4 streets, plus the mobile home park. Right there in the bend, there's a mobile home park. All of that's tied into this facility.
So that's where the 200 comes from, the 200 new
Yes, sir.
customers.
Basically what I did is I asked, how many water meter connections do we have? Not sizes or...
But that
anything.
doesn't go over into Brenda Band and all that,
No, sir.
that's just Vantage.
There's 1 or 2 streets right there across from the treatment plant, and it goes down to the corner, which is the mobile home park and that little shop that's there.
Right.
And then I think it also extends down the one street to the west, 25th or whatever. There's a street there. So it's 3 or 4 streets
Okay.
plus the mobile home park.
So realistically, you are picking up Treasure Island customers?
The north end of it, yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Several years ago, this board, or we put our east side force main on a shelf, the engineering and all that. Can that be pulled down and any of the engineering used towards this, or is that just a total different scope?
The short answer, no, sir.
Thank you. I love short answers.
Because the only thing that's somewhat equal to that is the east side force main route, which was going up the Water Management District Canal up to the Hamrick property, then across, and we're not utilizing any of that under this early concept because, well, we might, but since we now have to go a little bit further to the west to the Pine Ridge Park, it's not as conducive to use the.
So in electrical terms, this is one circuit of the big plant that would come down the future. So we're just working on this one little.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we need to, a motion to proceed.
Yeah, because I think we put it on the shelf at one time, so.
Yeah.
Well, I would think you would at least need to consider 2 things. One, a motion to do the paperwork associated with the appropriation. There'll be some signatures and review of documents, stuff that we've already done before. You know, we did it for Pine Ridge Park, several appropriations. It's more of a formality of that. We got to go through the paperwork and authorize execution by the board and or OUA staff to execute those documents. The second issue is that we do move forward with the RFP for engineering services, of which that scope of work, the selection of the firm, would all be brought back to the board at some time in the future for review, discussions, and or acceptance.
And at that point, we'd have a ballpark price tag on what we're looking at.
Well, we have the ballpark price tag now, but not until they conduct their preliminary engineering report, which would be after we accept the engineer, tell them to move forward. Several months later, we would get that report back.
Sounds good to me. You want to motion that where we can move forward, Mr. Conley? Is
I
that
want
the
him to
next
break
step?
that down for us.
Okay.
What's the first action you'd like for the board to be?
The paperwork probably for the state appropriation. For the state appropriation to do the execution of the agreement between the OUA and the state for the $523,867.
Okay.
I make the motion that we accept the allocated funds of $523.87 towards the Treasure Island septic to sewer program.
But that would include the execution of the documents as appropriate by OUA board and OUA staff.
Yes.
That good? Motion, Mr. Nelson.
Second.
Second, Mr. Fedley. Further discussion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Second phase. RFPs.
I would certainly, I don't know if this is going to be a motion or direction by the board to go ahead and go out with the engineering RFP for the design services, design and construction services for this project.
That should be board action authorizing that to be
So it'd
done.
be a motion.
Motion's made. I said,
Go ahead, Steve.
make the motion to accept, to go out for RFP for design and construction phase.
Motion,
Second.
Mr. Nelson, second, Mr. Fedley. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Good use of the money, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, got some good customers on board.
That should do it. You need anything else in connection with that?
No, just that we, as was pointed out, and we mentioned earlier, that when the landowner does come back, we will at least begin discussions with him. I don't know if Tom or if there is a board member that wishes to sit in on those discussions. We would certainly try to arrange that to get that started also.
With Joe Hazelleaf?
Yes, sir.
I don't know that takes board action at this point, because that,
Well, unless there's a board member that wants to be a party of those discussions. Otherwise, OUA staff can certainly do the discussions with them and bring it back.
Okay.
Okay.
I would love to sit in, but if one of the other board members wants to, I'll yield in a heartbeat, but
I'd limit it to one board member so you don't have to advertise a meeting.
Right. I was going to say, if anybody else would like to go, I will yield, but I would like to go, but if they
And-
don't.
Well, if
I
one else
nominate John
goes,
Reese to go to the meeting.
it should be just one at the meeting.
You said Jeff?
I said John Creasman. I nominate John Creasman to sit on the meeting.
So is
Need
that
a
second.
nomination, I'll just go and report back. How
Okay,
about that?
okay.
Sounds good to me.
Now, what-
Okay, well, that's all we would need at this time, I think.
He didn't get it yet.
I know. Okay, we good with that, Mr. Conley?
I think so.
All right, Mr. Hayford, you happy?
Peachy.
Peachy. Agenda item number 13, allocation of fiscal year 17 operating surplus.
Mr. Board, Chairman, and the board, the result of the FY17 audit, which it was discussed earlier, there were some funds that were unallocated through the course of the year. This has been a issue that we have dealt with luckily in the past, and we are just requesting some direction as to where we can land these monies, into which fund, if the board so has a choice or direction where we can put these monies as unallocated resources remaining from FY17. Staff has made a recommendation to the board for consideration that some of this money could be put in the capital improvement project fund, rate stabilization fund, or just the general operating account, but it can be placed essentially wherever board direction provides. I can only remind you that the benefit of the rate stabilization fund, where we do park some monies, those funds can be pulled out in future years as a part of our budgetary process and account for those monies as income during that year, which helps us for our coverage requirements that we need for loans and bonds. And that's why holding it in the rate stabilization fund is certainly agreeable as a portion of the money. The other money in the capital improvement project, it will go towards, as the name implies, capital improvements rather than operating expenses. In the general operating fund will go towards that. I will share with you that we do have some projects coming up that would be certainly beneficial long-term to the OUA, and I could get into a little bit of it now, but what it goes back to is for a number of years, the OUA meters were reported in 1,000 gallons, not actual gallons. It was confusing to some folks that they didn't know why they used 6,000 gallons. Well, if they used 5,100, it got reported, or whatever the number is, it got rounded up to the nearest 1,000 gallons. So around the middle of the 2000s, like around 2005 and 6, there was board direction to swap out all of those meters for actual gallon read meters. Hindsight being 2020, we run into a problem 10 years later that our meters are subject to be replaced if they meet one of two criteria: 10 years of service or 1.5 million gallons for the residential. Well, lo and behold, if you replace all the meters in 2006, around 2016, 17, 18, we magically have this expense all over because they meet that 10-year threshold. We're at that point. We have thousands of meters to replace. And at $100 roughly per meter, 120, you can see that the math adds up pretty quickly that we're going to have a significant cost allocation for meter replacement that just is a cost of doing business. We may be able to utilize some of these monies, either out of the operating account or the CIP, to help offset some of those costs. We have started our own internal study right now, and it looks like that we could move the 10-year element to 12 or 13 years based upon the meters that we're pulling out of the ground right now and testing to see what their accuracy is. The trade-off is that at 1.5 million, there is a wider range of variance in the reads, so we may have to lower that number to 1.25 million gallons. We have very few of those on residential use, so that's not the biggest factor. But the year factor is going to be huge. So you will see that showing up in not only this year's budget, but a new element to the FY19 budget that will be added and show up at your September board package, that we are going to allocate some monies towards meter replacements.
Can the old meters be refurbished?
Generally, no. For various reasons. One is regulations have changed to where they look at the lead content in anything that touches the water, and the meters that were 10 years ago do not have meet that provision.
Gotcha.
So just the meter body itself may not be able to pass. But by the time you replace the guts of the registry, you've almost replaced the cost of the meter. We will get some money back on the material itself, scrap metal.
Yeah.
We will get some money back on that, but it's this much compared to the cost of the meter. But there will be some metal that recycled, and we will get some of that money back.
When would this project start, John, the start of replacement,
It's beginning as we speak.
as we speak?
Right now, we're limited by availability of the meters and the personnel, and we've only allocated, I think, we'll get 400 or 500 meters done this year out of the several thousand that need to be due over the next 2 to 3 years. And by thousand, I mean it's on the order of 4,500 meters, 5,000 meters. It's huge.
I was waiting for you to say Southwest section, not meters, by God.
Well, the Southwest section for wastewater,
Yes.
this year, the beginning of this year, hopefully, if not certainly early in the beginning of next year, we are going to be doing a wastewater master plan. A part of the master plan effort is expansion, and there would be numerous areas in the location where sewer expansion would be analyzed as a part of the master plan effort.
So we need to either agree with your recommendation of the disbursement of surplus or come up with our own. But,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Would
They know where the money needs to go better than I do.
would I be correct in understanding that this money could be moved again in the future if we so desire?
If the money can be done what?
Could be moved?
Oh,
from-
sure, yes, sir, yes, sir.
I move that we accept staff's recommendation for
Allocation.
allocation of the 2017 operating budget surplus.
Motion, Mr. Malden.
Second.
Second, Mr. Nelson, excuse me. Further discussion? All in
Yeah,
favor?
why can't we spend some of that money and fix up our own place over there and move back someday? I'm tired of beating that dead horse.
Well, it's in the operating budget. Or it's capital improvement. What would it
Well, it
be?
could easily be done that way in the capital improvement or the operating fund account.
I mean, this place is beautiful, but it's not ours, guys. You know, I've been saying this for a year now.
I believe the discussion we had
Last
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 month
month, yeah.
was that we have a pending application for the historic
yes.
preservation, to know where we rank coming up here in October, November on the presentation of that. Of course, we would have to wait around until May
I know,
to
I
understand
know.
whether it's going to be funded by the legislature. But that was a part of it, whether or not we would want to spend the money now out of our pocket to put in the cameras and the recording equipment, which we could do, or wait till the historic grant preservation runs its course. Either way, we could do it. It's either direction, but I believe the direction at that time was to wait. But that
It's just a thought I've had, you know, and I'm just, such a nice place, but it's not ours, and I beat that horse down, it's dead, I'm gonna keep on beating it, but, you know, if we gotta wait and wait and wait for the government to bless us with a some kind of funding so we can move back into our own place, that's fine. But my goodness gracious, you know.
But where could we put all the people? If we
Yeah, I understand, that's,
Standing room only.
If I,
It's really board direction, whatever y'all choose and what to do, we'll do it.
We discussed it again last month, and I think that was the only thing that deterred us. Pretty much the majority of the people are ready to go home, but because we possibly get up there and then have to come back when they're during construction, that's kind of turned a left turn.
I just threw it out there, that's all I'm doing. You guys already made a motion, it's been seconded, I'm just throwing it out there. I gotta use this mic sometime, once a month, you know,
Glad to have it.
without being out of order here for time.
well, complicating this is the fact that only a portion of that building, I think, would qualify. The additional part, the part that's on the south side was added. The original buildings, that block-looking thing that originally was the bank. And I don't know whether I'm sure, I think, I don't know that much about historical funds, but I think they would be limited to only the old portion of that building. It wouldn't apply to the section where the meeting room is.
Yeah, well, there you go, you know.
Well, that is true, that it applies to the original bank building.
Correct.
But that would be it in total, but I would also suggest to you that that is the portion that's in the worst shape. So at least if the grant monies go towards that rehabilitation, the newer portion, which is on the south end, would be easier to restore and to refurbish.
Correct. And that goes in, the reason I was saying that, because that kind of goes in line with what you were saying about moving back over there, and any renovations we did on the old, on the newer part should not affect the historical.
Shouldn't.
I mean, common sense doesn't apply with government sometimes.
But the point being, though, Tom, if they're going to go in and rehab the bank portion, we probably lose total use of that building while that's going on.
Yeah.
And so we would still have to pull back over here for our monthly meetings because we would not be able to conduct business in there. So whether we are painting and carpeting the south portion, you know, as part of the refurbishment, or they're doing the total bank rehab, we can't use that building.
Well, that would affect the entire operation, it sounds to me like.
Yes, sir. It's a big deal. This is not an easy project.
Because I don't know where the operation would move to.
Giving you three recommendations.
You can rent out Gladys's for a couple hours, you know. You could-
Put up a tent, put up a tent.
But again, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I mean, it might be the type of deal that, you know, portable office space as it is now. We had actually joked around, but the parcel that we sold down by Morgan Furniture, we may rent back with portable office space on it in the temporary. But it's, again, it's something that if we are fortunate enough to get the grant monies, it is something that we will have to deal with.
Move to Taco Bell's got a drive-through supplement, selling a few tacos.
Here you go. I just wanted to put on record that I want us to get that done and move over there one day, and that's, I won't say any more about it.
Jeff, we have a motion on the floor right now about the allegation of operating surplus. Under board comments, why don't we discuss that now? That'll come up in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Okay? Any further discussion on the motion? Being none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 14, Whispering Pines Waste Management Improvement Project update.
Okay, this is item 14, Whispering Pines, the water main improvement project. I would like to at least suggest or state that the project is under construction right now. They began on Northwest 34th Street, heading west, and then up some of the side streets as they go by 4th Avenue and such. But that project is underway. Other than minor expected construction problems, there have been nothing major that I've been made aware of at this time during construction, so it is progressing. What I did need to discuss with you here, and it's included in the board package, is that in April of, I think it was April of 2016, between the board, OUA board, and the Board of County Commissioners, there was some discussion and agreement made about the low to medium income families that either own property or rent property out there, that the CDBG grant monies that the OUA would have to afford those connections to those qualified houses. The grant consultant estimated that that would be about 90 connections out of the 140 or 150 connections to be made. That being said, I don't have anything in writing where we, the OUA, said that that free connection, if you will, would be applied to all connections in the Whispering Pines project. For that to be considered, we have to concern ourselves with if there are 90 connections that did qualify in the low to medium income, how about the remaining connections out there? Would they qualify for this same free connection, if you will? I should point out to you that at least if we are considering that currently if they did receive the free connection, they still get a 75% discount because that's what our current rate schedule allows by previous board action. So what we're really talking about is that element of 25% of the cost for those remaining homes that are not income qualified. By those connections, we're talking about the residential connections, whether it is a single-family residential connection or a connection that might be associated with a rental property, like a master meter, like a mobile home park. I did some quick calculations over the past few days, and what we're talking about with the master meters that we are aware of out there in those connections, we're talking about a net value of around $30,000 to allow those connections to also get the free service. And the dilemma that I have in there is under some of these master meter connections, they might be renting to low to moderate income families as well. And if the household, single family, does qualify for it, why shouldn't the master metered account also get it? Because there are low to moderately income families renting spaces within those parks. So the question to the OUA board that I would like to try to get direction on is to whether all connections, whether master meter or single family residents, could be applied the same free connection charge. It would still exclude the non-residential, like there's a couple business connections. They still would pay the appropriate rate, but whether or not this free connection policy could apply to all residential units, whether it's single family or master meter. And therein lies the question that the county grant coordinator, as well as the BOCC, and following it up the chain to the CDBG, that I'd like to get answered today, that we can or will apply this free connection to all residential connections.
Is there a staff recommendation or?
You know, to answer as clearly as I can, I'm on the fence on this one. There's like a 51-49. I see the benefits of the low to moderate income families, wherever they live, getting this benefit. I see the issue that I would be much more inclined to have customers long-term than to have this debate over the $378, if that's the capital connection charge being paid. So my long answer to your question is, yes, I'm slightly in favor of allowing this free connection for any and all residential connections associated and tied with this project only because of the CDBG monies that are involved. It is not a precedent for other connections elsewhere. It is not a precedence for after this project is completed. There will be a short time window that will be made available for them to connect. If they so choose to not connect, the project is done. Then we treat them like any other connection down the road. It is for a short time window while this grant is being paid, while this project is being worked on. Once that window closes, this offering of a free connection goes away.
What time frame are you talking about?
The project is supposed to be completed by the late spring of next year. I would suggest that we would at least leave it open for much of that time period, because if the water main isn't available, they can't connect, but they could still pay their fees up front. So if we set a timeline of March 1st, 2019, that they would have to sign up, I would, some time limit, I think would be agreeable.
And staff's recommendation is that all residential units get the free service due to the fact this is funded in part by the Capital Development Block Grant, with a window period for the free hookup to expire when?
Pick a date, whatever you want. It shouldn't go past the May, June timeframe of next year, because that's when construction is complete. So I would suggest that it would be March or April of next year.
April
We could
30th?
have it December 31st. I mean, they can pay,
I'm trying to put some certainty on this if you.
April 1st, 2019.
Isn't it true, though, that most of the master meters are for like multi-residential places, which would be owned by landlords?
By definition, the master meter is more than one residential unit.
Yes.
So you could have a house and then an apartment in the garage, or you could have 5 mobile homes.
Okay.
Typically, the answer is the master meter could be for the lot owner, because they might own the house, but they may not, they may have in that area, because of the acreage, and we won't get into the non-conforming uses out there, but there may be a mobile home or two on the property. They may or may not own it, but in most cases, the answer is it is a business enterprise. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Well, how do we know then the landlord's going to pass that saving on to those low-income tenants?
I believe there is an agreement that they have to sign, that they know that there is an allocation that this is being provided at no cost for no rent increase. I haven't seen that. That's part of the grant coordinator's effort, not ours. We were just asked whether or not we would provide the service. What I can tell you is that we have provided that service for single-family residents. I can tell you that I would prefer to have connections out there rather than water mains. I don't like it being open-ended. That's why I'm saying we have a time frame that this is allocated towards. It's the best that I can make it happen. Now, what the grant coordinator has to do to satisfy the CDBG requirements, I'm unsure of. And whether there is this agreement, who even monitors the agreement? I mean, I don't have an answer on that.
I understand completely. I just see some of these landlords that have 14 or 15 trailers plugged in off a master meter, keep the money for themselves. I know some of these folks, and it's just, they're not going to pass it on to their trailer full of people that don't even know what's going on, and it's a problem.
Well, the other side of that coin is if they pay, they're going to pay passing that cost on.
No, sure.
They're probably going to pass the cost anyway.
Exactly. Getting back to the question at hand, I think for the expiration of the offer, what my thoughts are is, don't extend it out too long, but not given a specific date, but 30 days past the date of completion of the project, and then it shuts off. They've got the whole length of the project to join for a free hookup, and give them 30 days, and then it's over and move on, would be my thought. Instead of giving it 3 months, 6 months, 10 months, starting at December 1st, because delays happen in projects too, and it might not be available. So 30 days past the completion of the project would be the end of the bonus. Okay, yeah, would be my thought.
Well, aren't most of them already hooked in?
What's the question?
Most of them customers already tied in? Most
Sir?
of them are already hooked in. That was the question.
Yeah.
Well, we have no customers connected in at this time for the new water main because it hasn't been cleared for service.
None are hooked.
There are some that are on existing water main, I believe it's on 10th Avenue. 10th Avenue, we have a water main. So, and then a little bit on 34th Street, the Okeechobee Achievement Academy, places like that are connected in to our water main. But the bulk of the rest of the area in Whispering Pines, there is no water main
sorry.
available, and it's going to
Whispering
be.
I'm getting Whispering Pines and too many pines around here. Okay.
Well, if it's any further confusion, we call Pine Ridge Park PRP, and the construction
I
company
had
at
them in
Whispering
my
Pines
mind.
is
I'm sorry.
PRP. So
I'm off track.
we really want to talk about confusion.
It's worth no acronyms. But that'd be my thought. Word of mouth, get out then that, hey, we tied in, it's completed, it's good, tie in. If not, then it's going to cost them the capital connection charge. I think it's just 30 days. Not staying it out too long.
How far are we running the pipe? Are we just running to a meter and then they're gonna hook up, or
No, sir, we're
gonna hook
connecting the
we're gonna hook-
household to the meter.
are we gonna do that on master meters also?
No, sir, we can't do that.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. I mean, giving them free service is one thing, but running plumbing to all their little trailers is another.
No, we would, on the master, well, let me put it this way. On the master meter connections, we would run it to the pump, wherever the pump is, for that, serving that part. Where the number of lines that branch off, that is not going to be.
Where their garden hoses go from there, it doesn't matter.
Over the hills and through the dale to
Okay.
grandmother's house we go.
Very good.
Do we want to waive the fees to every residential customer?
That would be the residential, whether it is single family or master meter. We would still have the fees associated with any non-residential use like a business. Those
Yeah.
fees would still stand.
There are commercial customers out there.
A couple.
What's the board's pleasure? This is for this project only. We're not setting a precedence for anything down the road with other project agreements or anything. This is for this project.
This project only, and only because of the CDBG monies involved in this project, would the OUA board consider waiving the connection fees for these residential connections, whether single family or master meter, and essentially what you're doing is you're waiving the 25% charges that we currently connect from any other connections.
And 90 out of the 170 already qualified for free.
That was the estimate given to me by the
Right.
grant coordinator.
And they knocked on doors, so.
Yes, sir.
You're talking about all residential connections, whether it's master meter or single.
Single family residential, that is correct.
With the expiration of 30
I'm
days.
stuck on the master meter stuff. The rest of it I'm okay with.
And that turns into a business right at that point. But I agree. I kick that around too, but like John said, long-term customers are very important, growth of the system, all that, so.
You guys can make the motion. I'm going to disagree. That's okay. I'm only one person here today.
Well, we can fail here. We can not move forward with it.
Well, if we had 4 in favor, it would still be the supermajority.
Yeah.
We
Still
could,
pass,
we
not
could
stop.
survive with a 4-1 vote.
Again, what's the board's pleasure?
Somebody sack up and make the motion. Jeez.
I don't think any of us like it very much.
All I need is a motion and a second, and that's a vote. Then we can discuss it again.
I think we should I make a motion to move forward with the free hookup.
free connection fees for the single family, regardless whether it's single family or multifamily. Would that also require the time limit that this is only available up to 30 days at the conclusion of the project?
So stated.
Let me rephrase it, 30 days after certification by DEP to clear it for work.
Correct.
Yeah, so stated.
Okay, motion, Mr. Myers?
Second.
Second, Mr. Nelson.
Good.
Further discussion? Nothing. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
3-1.
Is it 3-1?
4-1.
No.
4-1.
4-1. Good. We're good.
4-1?
We're good.
Well, let's do it this way. There was only one no vote, so that meant there were 4.
And I heard everybody, nobody abstained, so.
Okay.
All right. Anything else on that, Mr. Hafer?
Not on the Whispering Pines.
Okay, we're gonna, agenda item 15, nobody in the audience. Agenda item number 16, items from Mr. Conley.
The legal world is very quiet for the OUA.
I'll say it again, no, nothing from Rocky, huh?
Very quiet,
Very quiet.
which is really good.
Yeah. Agenda item number 18, Mr. Hafer.
17, I guess it is.
17?
Executive. I will only tell you that next meeting, we will be bringing back the final, let's see, we will bring back, I think we have a couple things associated with the budget that we will be bringing back to you with the idea that the final budget would be brought to you in the September meeting for review and or adoption for FY19. But we are working forward with the budget modifications to 19, as well as any amendment to the current year. I would only suggest that if anybody has had any questions looking at their budget process, please get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to answer those questions and work through them when we can. So that's all I have. We're marching on.
Items from the board. We have a letter.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there was a suggestion made at the last board meeting that pump out facilities for septic tanks had some issues with being able to dispose of material at the one RMF facility here in Okeechobee County. So I did reach out to them to ask them what is the cause for, are there folks that have been banned or banished or kept from dumping out there? And if so, what is the cause for that? And this is the response that I got back to them. We will still address that issue as far as having dump facilities at our wastewater treatment plant with the wastewater master plan effort, but I did want to reach out to the John Abels facility to find out what is happening out there that's causing these people not to be able to participate or utilize the facility, and this is the letter I got back. I think if I can remember much of what they shared with me on the phone is that the only time that they might restrict use is if they are themselves, through environmental, like heavy rains, having problems accepting material, but they make every effort to take Okeechobee County material first before they take out of county material. Now, I'm not in the business. I don't haul out there. I don't utilize it. So I don't have any firsthand knowledge of what goes on out there, other than what was brought to us at the last meeting, that there are folks that say they have trouble disposing of material out of that facility. So that was just really for informational purposes. We will still look at the possibility, availability, cost of building a facility at our treatment plant during the wastewater master plan.
And when is that going to take place?
That's going to be starting probably the first part of this fiscal year. I would suspect that that report will take 3 to 4 months probably to be produced. As a segment of that report would be what the possibility, if you will, of building a facility out there and the ramifications of building a facility, ramifications being obviously cost. Certainly from an operation standpoint, can the treatment plant handle it? And thirdly, the end product, the residuals that we produce, would there be any impact to those? Because currently, right now, we produce AA facilities, which means that we can dispose of them almost anywhere, in any way. If for some reason we get something either through the treatment plant connected to the collection system coming to the treatment plant, or dumped that say might have some heavy metals in it, we lose that AA classification, and now we are limited as to where we can dispose of that material, primarily to the landfill, which means we have tipping fees that we would have to pay.
All right, you talk to the companies out there, you get the horror stories, and why can't you do it here in Okeechobee? Why can't we do it in Okeechobee? So we all know the story. That's why it was brought forward.
Yeah, and those companies might be providing valid answers or maybe not so valid responses. There is no doubt that at the very least, they have a long drive out there and a long drive back. That's time spent away from the business. That is a given. By going to our facility, obviously they would save on some of that transport cost. Or if they can't go to this facility, shoot, if they got to go to Fort Pierce or Avon Park, it's even worse. So
The complaints I heard is they would drive all the way out there to Abel's and get turned around at the gate for no apparent reason. They'd have to go on out to Fort Knox. But that's their fights, that's their battles, not ours. But I have heard all those complaints. I'm sure you have too. And I look at revenue stream and plus meeting our certification. And well, more to come.
I was personally told they were at full capacity, it could take no more new customers. So this letter is kind of funny to me.
it's,
I thought so too.
Yeah.
you know, it's the type of deal you hear comments from the haulers, and now you got comments from the end user. It's worthless sheet of paper. That's all I can say. Nothing more, nothing less. So anyway, I just wanted to supply this to the board as what I was able to at least get from them, you know, for the use of their property.
Items from the board. Jeff, you want to revisit the retrofit? We had the prices last month and everything to retrofit the building where we could be in compliance with the interlocal agreement. And we can certainly discuss that right now.
Well, you guys know my feelings on that. This place is beautiful. It's not ours. Man, if we got free money or extra money left over, looking for a place to put it, you know, instead of waiting for a handout for a historical society, let's fix our building, make it as nice as you want, and go back over there.
Well, the positive thing about that is we're free to set our meeting times when we want to, and we're not.
You're not going to get much argument.
I just want to be heard, that's it, just a reservation.
It's just we need to make, we got to take the step forward
I understand.
to move forward with the implementation of the cameras, or I get it.
Well, it would just, you know, whatever direction you all want to provide, motion, whatever, we can make it happen. We got the quote.
We can get on their calendar to get an install, and we can be done. I mean, it's that easy. It's just writing a check.
You guys know how I feel about it.
I don't know what the period of time would be to complete that. Shouldn't be that long, should it?
No, sir, it won't be, probably less than a month. I don't know what the Availability would just be the availability of the cameras and scheduling the work to pull the cables and test it out, but
Give Paula to teach us how to use them.
I thought we already discussed this though. I'm in favor of moving,
That's right.
without question.
We all.
But we still have construction that's gonna happen, whether we pay for it, the state pays for it, we have stuff we have to take care of there. Then we're gonna move back over here during that, and then go back over there. I just think we should wait.
Well, we have a contract with Ms. Robertson and the BOCC until January.
Correct.
So we still have to call and make sure everything's fine, but
Yes.
if construction starts, we're gonna have to move everybody out of that office, so, it's gonna affect everybody.
Right.
But, I'm in agreement too. I said it last month, and I got a little bit barked at by another board member, that we did not accomplish what we meant to do here. Transparency, we were transparent before, in my opinion. We were notifications in the paper, and we had a meeting room. We got the cameras, but that's in the interlocal agreement now, that's mandatory. But here's a typical day. There's nobody here. We did not accomplish what we were trying to do.
Don't get me wrong, I like walking right across the street to come to a meeting. But it's just
That's not ours, that's the
You
bottom
know.
line. I mean,
Yeah.
we all said from the very beginning, pulled the recordings, that we would like to be, it's our place. If we have
Thanks to the county for letting us use it. The people are wonderful. They've really been over backwards to accommodate us, but guys, it's just not ours.
That doesn't bother me. I mean, it's a fine meeting room.
It's a wonderful
I don't
place.
see any reason why we shouldn't wait and see what kind of money we get. I don't know.
Lots of mention, what's the construction dust and debris and everything gonna do to the equipment that we're gonna install?
Take it off the pedestals like this and walk out.
well, that, essentially, if we did put it up, that's what we'd end up doing. We'd
Yeah,
take it down and
it's
store it.
It's
But
just
clearly, if the refurbishment happens, clearly during that process, we would be able to wire it, provide the right lighting, microphones, 100% have a very good sound video system during the refurbishment process.
more comfortable chairs.
Yeah, nice comfortable chair for John. Sit there with us. There you go. Captain seat.
We're going to have the metal chairs brought back in so that they're
Therapeutic chair.
They makes for quicker, more attentive.
Sure.
We've only had it happen one time as an inconvenience that I can recall since we've been coming over here, where we had to change our meeting because they decided, well, we're the low on the totem pole. If we would have at least had our building retrofitted at that time, we could have continued on as business as usual. And there's no need not to, if that's the direction of the board to go ahead and do the retrofit, get that done. Not that we have to use it right away, but we're done when we need for special meetings, workshops, anything like that. So it's a pleasure of the board. I'm good either way. We can wait or we can spend the money now that we got a little surplus and put in some cameras.
Well, it does make sense to do it all at once.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
That's to me.
Now would be the time to discuss what we would like to have in our own place. How would you want to rearrange it, the lighting, the seating, so forth and so on, so that when the time comes, we just move forward.
That would certainly be next May, once we know what the state legislature does. If we're ranked high enough and they fund the money, the grant money.
well, it makes sense to be there anyhow. I mean,
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Being none, I thank everybody for coming. We'll see you in August. Meeting adjourned.
We're good.
very good. Harry, nice job. Mike, nice job.
You don't have a wonderful day.
Likewise. Likewise.
What's for not being too terribly public, the selling you down to That's still in the works, then I guess? Okay. Well, they're shipping us stuff.